I know it looks like I just came from Alaska. I'm telling you I didn't, even though I would love to go up there to see the great northern lights. But we got something else to view today. The great Mel Kiper! Mock Draft 1.0! I'm fired up, man. I'm warming up just thinking about it right now. And I live in Florida, and look at me. Woo! What do you guys up north must be freezing. I hope you guys are having a really cooling day, though. We got great Mel Kiper. He is back with his first mock draft of the cycle. So no more talking. Let's get right into this mock draft. Ooh, look at the thumbnail, too. You got Shedeur Sanders, Jahad Campbell, Mason Graham, and Tyler Warren. As we get into the little details, I did go over the instructions. I did not look at the mock draft. I just read the manual just in case it was anything crazy, and there really wasn't. Just kind of advertisements. Let's do it, though. Tennessee at number 1. Cam Ward is off the board. Whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, I think there's a really good chance when it's all said and done, the Tennessee Titans, they're going to be getting a quarterback. They have to, right? And Brian Callahan's going to say to himself, if I don't get a quarterback, my job's going to be on the line. So the more I've thought about that, the more it's come to realization for me that quarterback, while it isn't the top-heavy class that it was last year, there are still some really promising prospects. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and even Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart. We'll see how he does in this off-the-season stuff. Will Howard is a developmental guy on day 2, day 3. You name it, you can go down the board, Curtis Rourke, etc., for guys to watch out for later in the draft. But Cam Ward, he's got all the tools to bet on traits, the arm talent, the velocity, the athletic profile, the scramble, make plays, do things on the move, out of structure, that deep ball that he has. He makes plays down the field. And as I talk about, you got to get a quarterback. That is their biggest need on this roster. An offensive line, too, and, needs more defensive help, especially edge rush. I think is going to be something I have to look at. And another thing worth mentioning that Mel Kiper brings up is that Mike Borgonzi, the new GM from Kansas City, is going to be in his first year as the GM. So he might say to himself, let's try to trade back. Let's get more draft capital. That way we can continue to build this thing, start out the 10-year right that way. Or you just go for the quarterback. That's where the evaluation is going to be critical with this. And projecting what a new GM is going to do is going to be very, very interesting because I imagine he's not going to feel any pressure. Right? Like Brian Callahan might feel a little more pressure. On to the Cleveland Browns. Travis Hunter is going to be the pick here, the wide receiver / cornerback from Colorado, the explosive Heisman. And for the Browns, quarterback is their number 1 need clearly on this roster. There are some offensive line woes, potentially a running back of the future. You look at adding another cornerback into the room. If Myles Garrett's traded, then that could be a real scenario. Go out and get an Abdul Carter. It really is going to depend on some of those decisions. I know I just said the Titans had the league's second worst QBR and interception total. Well, I'm not going to even need to read what's after this because I'm pretty sure the Browns, if I remember correctly, had the worst. And they had the worst in both categories. So figuring out that quarterback scenario is going to be the top priority for them because especially if they don't figure that out, then Myles Garrett's going to definitely want to go out at that point. Travis Hunter is a really good player. I love the pick for them. It's just going to come down to how are they going to fix this quarterback scenario? Are they going to go get Kirk Cousins? Are they going to go get Sam Darnold? All question marks for this franchise going forward. On to the New York Football Giants. They go get Shedeur Sanders, quarterback Colorado. He is headed to primetime New York City now, I guess we can call it here, and the lights will be shining bright for Shedeur Sanders. He is definitely got all the ability to be a franchise quarterback. I think Shedeur Sanders, really good player. I like him on and off the field, too. I don't have any concerns when it comes to that. The prima donna logo or he's got all this stuff where he's not going to be a locker room guy. I'm not worried about that with Shedeur Sanders. The only thing that really concerns me is maybe he doesn't have the arm talent. And I also do look at the pocket presence this season as a bit of a step back, especially at the end of the season. You go up against those tougher defenses like BYU, and he really struggled with that. So that's going to be something for the Giants. You're going to have to prioritize and making sure you have a stable interior of that offense line so Shedeur Sanders feels comfortable, especially early on in his career. With that all being said, they clearly need a quarterback. Brian Dable, Joe Shane, they're going to be feeling a little bit of pressure this offseason to nail this quarterback position. Could they be in play for Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins? I know many fans probably will, I don't know about that one, G-Sling. Don't go there, you know what I mean? Cover my ears. But Shedeur Sanders certainly has all the ability to be a franchise quarterback. And then we on to the New England Patriots, Abdul Carter. I love this pick here for the New England Patriots. You don't force offense, even though offense is their biggest need. They also need an edge rusher. And this has been a problem for them for a very, very long time, is not having a good enough edge rushing room consistently wise. And Abdul Carter would, I think, elevate that room right away. Him and Keon White off the edge, I'm liking that. Obviously, Keon White can play inside out too, but Abdul Carter gives you a true number 1 edge in the room. And then you can get offense later in the draft / in free agency with some of that money you have. But I do think this would be a nice disruptive way to start off Mike Vrabel's time here in New England to get a really stud off the edge. On to the Jags. Mason Graham, interior defensive line. The Jags probably thinking defense here. It's just a matter of time, or a matter of where on defense, right? Will Johnson could be the opposite of Tyson Campbell. And I do think that is really likely scenario 2. Is a tough one because they have drafted interior guys. They got Jordan Jefferson. You got Mason Smith. You got Eric Armstead, who they've been playing a little out of position as an edge rusher. Maybe they move him back to the inside this year. Those are really interesting questions. Once their coaching staff kind of gets realigned, we'll be able to look at that more in identity fold as that plays out. I like Mason Graham, though. Like, he would be a home run hit. All right, he's just somebody, or he's a bases are loaded. You need you one hit to win the game. Mason, I'm terrible with baseball references. If you can't tell, you're like, okay, just stop with the baseball references. I'm getting pretty bad with this one. I love football. Baseball is really cool. I like to play baseball, but I just never could really get into baseball. Going back to football, though, here in Jacksonville, I like this pick, though. Mason Graham, I'm not going to fault anybody who drafts Mason Graham because he's just a really good football player. And on to the Raiders here. Tetairoa McMillan, a wide receiver from Arizona. This would make a lot of sense if you could not get one of those top quarterbacks in the draft. Maybe they go out and get somebody in free agency in that department, and then you draft somebody on day 2 to develop for the long haul. This would make a ton of sense, too, to get like a Kirk Cousins. You draft a Jalen Milroe or a Jackson Dart, et cetera, on day 2, and then you develop them behind that veteran quarterback. You bring in Tetairoa McMillan, get some offensive firepower on the outside of the receiver position, because that is a big void for them. Other than Jacoby Myers, I mean, it was slim pickings there at the receiver position. Trey Tucker, nice speed threat, but I do think that they really going to need somebody else on the outside with some size. So, and obviously Brock Bowers, super weapon. On to the New York. Oh, yeah, here, if you want to read some of this, I will stop that there. So if you do want to take a look at this, because, hey, Mel Kiper, always a fun read. They got the interesting quotes out here. I'm sure some interesting stuff. On to the New York Jets, Mykel Williams. Oh, my gosh. As you can't tell, I'm a Jets fan. I'm not super happy about this one. I like Mykel Williams. I just think he's a really raw prospect. And the Jets aren't necessarily in win-now mode. It depends if Aaron Rodgers wants to come back for another season. If he does come back, Devontae Adams comes back, then they're in a win-now mode. I do not think Mykel Williams is going to be a day 1, even 5 sack. I don't even know if that might be something that's a little bit too much expectation. And whenever you're drafting a rookie, you can't really expect a whole ton anyway. However, at number 7, I'd like to get more of an impact guy. I feel like there is somebody on the board here, such as a Benjamin Morrison, a Will Johnson that we could get in the secondary. If Aaron Glenn is the coach, that would be an awesome pick to go get Ben Morrison or Will Johnson in the secondary to be that opposite pairing for the long haul with Sauce Gardner. I would be totally down with getting James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green. I love Mike Green. I just feel like Mykel Williams, he's a really good athlete for his size. I don't think he's got the explosive burst, though, maybe that he's hyped up to have. Like, he's solid. He's a good athlete. And again, I don't deny the tools with him. It's just a matter of developing. And I love the ability to play inside out, too, that he's shown at Georgia. He's a good run defender, too. So he's going to help us out in that department, which has been an issue for us. So it would make sense because you'd pair him up with Will McDonald. You kind of have that rotation, a strong side. Somebody can stop the run. Somebody get after the quarterback. So I get all that. It's just for me personally, I think that I'd rather go cornerback who's on the board here. I'd rather go offensive tackle. I'd love to have a bookend tackle with Olu Fashanu for the long haul because Morgan Moses is a free agent. And whether or not Max Mitchell or Carter Warren end up working out that right tackle position, it's like, who knows? I would love to go get Will Campbell or Josh Connolly Jr. or Josh Simmons. Like, those are really good options, and that's what I would rather do over Mykel Williams. On to the Carolina Panthers here. They go Jalon Walker, the Georgia hybrid linebacker edge rusher. I know some people are really high on Jalon Walker. I'm not quite there, and I don't know. What am I missing? Let me know. I know he's got crazy athleticism, and he was super disruptive. Like, he's just somebody that has a nose for the football. But man, oh man, do I feel like he's also raw, just like Mykel Williams. And whereas Mykel Williams, I think, is going to be a good early down run defender at least. Jalon Walker, I wonder if he's going to really be able to hold up off the edge. You're going to have schematically understand and use him. Like, he's a guy that worked his best getting pressure between the A-gaps, rushing in off of spies and things like that. So I just feel like whatever team ends up drafting him, especially if you're drafting him this high, you're going to have a really strong plan in place as he develops as a pass rusher because his pass rush tools Or basically he wins with his athleticism, with his burst to the edge, or with counters to the inside and whatnot. So that, or on the inside, like a blitzer, like A gap, B gap pressures. Those are things that are a little concerning for me because I've seen that and I don't always see that work out in the NFL level. I want to see him actually go against the tackle, win with some counters, win with some power. He's a good player though, and I really do like Jalon Walker. I just personally am not comfortable taking him top 10. I'd rather go Mike Green or James Pierce Jr. here. On to New Orleans Saints, Will Johnson, the cornerback, the Wolverine. Very, very interesting pick here. You got Paulson Adebo, who is a free agent. They just shipped off Marshawn Lattimore to the Washington Commanders. So this, I mean, you could add somebody else in here. Now, I am really high on Kool-Aid McKinstry. I thought he played excellent. And I'm actually glad that they shipped off Marshawn Lattimore for a third-round pick. I mean, it's a big loss, but where would this football team is at? They need a little bit of a rebuild anyway. So I felt like it was a really good spot. You need to bring back Paulson Adebo. That money is going to be a little tight. I expect them to get a deal done. Now, he has hinted towards leaving. So if he leaves, that will be a big loss, and this would make a lot more sense. Then you get Will Johnson. You have Kool-Aid McKinstry on the outside, Alontae Taylor in the slot. So it really just depends on what happens with Paulson Adebo. If you bring back Adebo, then I don't think this is a top priority for them. If you lose Adebo, then depending on what you do in free agency, this could be a top need. Obviously, also Chase Young, will he end up walking? Do they go after a pass rusher, James Pierce Jr., Mike Green? A lot of things on the table. Trenches, offensive line. So, yeah, it's really hard. New Orleans Saints are a tough team to project. You can even go Tyler Warren there. They got a lot of needs, though. On to the Bears, Will Campbell. Pretty self-explanatory, cut and dry. A pick you're going to see over and over again, I'm sure, in every single mock draft, whether it's Will Campbell, whether it's Kelvin Banks Jr., Josh Simmons, Josh Connolly. Get an offensive lineman, Chicago. Hey, don't rule out Ashton Jeanty, though. That's all I'm going to say. Jeanty would be a fun one, too, for Ben Johnson in his first year. On to the 49ers, Kelvin Banks Jr., the tackle from Texas, Hook 'em Horns. Go ahead and get themselves that right tackle of the future. And in this case, he's saying that the Niners still have Trent Williams locked down the left side for 2 more years, but he will be 37 at the start of next season, so playing for the future. And either way, like, I'm not worried about it because with Aaron Banks being a free agent, if he's not re-signed, he might get a big contract elsewhere. So they're going to have a void on here, and that's why I say you can move McKivicks inside the guard, you can move Banks inside the guard. You just kind of get your best 5 offensive linemen out there. They need to invest in this tackle position for the future. It's definitely a need. I mean, Jalen Moore has been a nice swing tackle for them on that left side, but that right tackle position is definitely a question mark for the long haul. And some people, such as myself, kind of view Banks as a guard anyway. I kind of like him a lot as a guard. I don't know. It's a really tough call. I do like his strength to hold up off the edge for sure, but that it will be a question mark. Even Mel Kiper says he could be 6'3" or shorter, which it wouldn't shock me at all. On to the Cowboys here, Luther Burton III, another one that we're going to see mocked quite a bit. Yes, it's a mock draft without Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty going to Dallas. Are you kidding me? I didn't, you know what I mean? That automatically makes this crazy unique. But I do think Luther Burton would be an excellent skill set that in their offense with CeeDee Lamb. You get a guy who's going to bring that yak machine into the room and get you another playmaker for Dak Prescott, get the ball in his hands. They do need another playmaker, whether it's Jeanty, whether it's Burton. I still would lean Jeanty. I like Jeanty a lot. He's a top 5 player in the draft class. Luther Burton's super talented. And I do think Burton needs a good quarterback at the next level to take care of some of that skill set and also a good play caller. But the talent is there with Burton, man. He's going to be somebody that can be a Deebo Samuel for your football team. I do think there'll be a little, like I said, inconsistency with Burton in his game. But I don't deny what he brings to the table as a playmaker. On to the Dolphins here, Malachi Starks, the Georgia safety. No college defense has ever had 3 players go this early in the same year per ESPN's research. Oh, their ESPN research. What about Yahoo's research or Google's research or G Sling's research? No, but yeah, I think Starks is he's going to be a jack of all trades player. And you got to figure on Holland may not be back. He had a bit of a down year. Jordan Poyer is probably not going to be back. So they need safety no matter what. Even if you bring back Holland, they're going to need to address this position. Elijah Campbell, I believe, is also a free agent as well. So a lot of areas that this team could look at, but I do think cornerback, safety is an area that they need to at least add some depth in. And Starks would give you that too, especially if you lose Kid Coho. He is a restricted, so he should be back on the Chief. But Starks could play a little in the slot too. I think it's a good move. I think it is a solid move. I mean, I like Ben Morrison a lot too for them. I think offensive line is another big priority for the Dolphins. Like, they got to address that offensive line. On to the Indianapolis Colts, Tyler Warren. Now, here's a straightforward pick. Tyler Warren, Shane Steichen, go get your tight end. Somebody in here, they use 2 tight end sets quite a bit, and they want somebody that can block as well as be a a playmaker for them, that's exactly what Tyler Warren can do. He's going to give them some receiving upside that they currently don't have. And Mo Alie-Cox's a good blocker, and so is Drew Ogletree. You got some young guys, Will Mallory, maybe he can develop. But Kylan Grenson's a free agent. He kind of a bit of a down year, so maybe he goes somewhere else. Who knows, right? There's a lot of different options with them. Indianapolis Colts, though, they need a tight end. Tyler Warren would certainly be a nice addition. And this is one I just can't wrap my head around. I keep seeing this mock draft pick over and over again by Dane Brugler and all these experts. I am baffled by this. Is there something that the Atlanta Falcons organization is giving away? Do they love Shedeur Stewart or something? I don't know, but I'm seeing this over and over and over again by these lead draft analysts, and it just doesn't make a whole ton of sense to me. Yeah, Shedeur Stewart is super explosive. I think he's got crazy traits, the arm length and the size. And yes, he is somebody that has a lot of upside. But when you watch his film, I almost say this guy is going to be like a hybrid 3. He could even move to the inside at the next level, but he's going to play like a 5-tech role for a team. This Falcons team, they need more of like an actual true pass rusher. And also with Shedeur Stewart, like it's one thing if he was just a menace. I think he needs to really get better with his hands and getting off blockers. He gets stuck on blockers a lot. He's got power. Don't get me wrong. Like he'll jar dudes back, but he can't get off a guy. Like I need to see a shed more consistently, and his location skills too in the run game. There's been many times where ball carries, he'll be like engaged with an offensive tackle, and the running back will go Bright Ryan, and he's like pushing the offensive lineman instead. So really talented player. I'd go James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green, both staring at me on the board. Go grab one of those guys. Anyway, that's no knock on Shedeur Stewart. Really has the immense upside. I just see him as more of an interior guy. They got Zach Harrison, and they drafted Ruka Roro too on that interior. So I just feel like they need more of an edge guy. The Arizona Cardinals next up, and they're saying to themselves, we don't want Seattle getting Tyler Booker, so we're gonna go get him right here and snag him off the board. Now, yes, pass rush. I favor going towards the inside, like a Kenneth Grant, who is still on the board right now. I know a lot of, especially if James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green is available, I'm taking one of those guys, which I'm surprising. He said it'd be a reach for them to go after James Pierce Jr., Mike Green, or Nick Gordon. I totally disagree. Now, Nick Gordon I have more as a back end of the first round, second round guy. Pierce, Green, I have as first round guys. You're taking those dudes. I have no problem going even top 10 for one of those guys. Yeah, there's some rawness to their game as maybe run defenders, but I love what they bring as disruptive machines as pass rushers. And that would make a lot of sense for them too, but I do look at that edge room and say, maybe, you got Collins under contract. You've got Baron Browning, who stepped up at the end of the season. Maybe he gets a little small extension or something like that, or a contract. But BJ Ojulari coming back. So I could see them bringing a veteran. They're going to need to add, like no matter what, to that edge room. Also, the interior, though, as I talked about, might be the bigger need since you brought in free agents last year and Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols, both of those guys getting injured. So maybe they go more the youth route on that interior with Darius Robinson and get 2 young studs on there. And then you get a veteran pass rusher to go with some of that youth. And that's why I've been leaning towards interior. But I think no matter what, you need to improve the pass rush. This is a sneaky need. It really depends on what happens with guys like Will Hernandez and Evan Brown, both being free agents. You got Isaiah Adams, who should be able to step into that right guard position. He's played well there and keep and hold that down. But yes, that left guard position could be up in the air, or one of those guard positions in general. So Tyler Booker would be a nice fit. Like it's exactly the type of guard that they look for, and would keep Kyler Murray some clean on that interior, which is really, really important. So I don't hate this pick, but at the same time, I do think defensive line is probably the top priority, just depending on, of course, Jonah Williams too. Maybe you go Josh Simmons here. So a lot of options here for the Cardinals, just depending on some of those injury reports and who they bring back in free agency. On to the Cincinnati Bengals. Jod Campbell, let's go. Oh my goodness, I didn't expect this one at all. I see Jod Campbell as a dude that can literally play in multiple assets for you on your defense, whether it's lined up as an edge rusher, lined up in A and B gaps, or as a traditional linebacker. I think he's got the coverage instincts to do that. And he's still a young player too, right? I mean, it's not perfect. The film's not perfect, but he has some flashes, and not just flashes, like he is pretty dang one of the best linebackers that I saw this season all around, and as young as a player as he is with the talent that he has is incredible. Now, going to the fit here for the Bengals, it is a very interesting pick because I feel like in this case scenario, they would probably want to use him more as a edge rusher early on. I mean, you got Jermaine Pratt, you got Logan Wilson. Now, Jermaine Pratt will be going to a contract year, so he could be that long-term 1-2 punch with Logan Wilson in that linebacking room. However, with that being said, they could use another pass rusher too with Myles Murphy, especially if they decide to cut from Sam Hubbard this offseason. So those are some interesting scenarios. How are you going to use him? It definitely depends on your defensive coordinator who you end up hiring. But I don't hate it. They do need defensive help, whether it's safety, whether it's edge rusher. I know people say go into your defensive line. Kenneth Grant is on the board here. They do have some youth there. I lean towards going the veteran free agency route, but I certainly wouldn't hate that. If they went Kenneth Grant, that'd be a great, you bring all the Wolverines out here, right? But yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm going to have to think about that one a little bit more. I love Jihad Campbell, and I do think he's worth this pick per se. It just comes down to how are you going to play him? That's going to be the thing early on. Maybe you move on from Jermaine Pratt. Maybe you trade him. That's a possibility too. Seattle Seahawks go Armin Embu, offensive tackle / guard. And for the Seattle Seahawks, he would give you that versatility. You put him over at right guard, presumably, right? And then you have injuries. If Abe Lucas isn't, is banged up or whatever, George Fant is still under contract. So if they bring him back, like both of those guys are banged up again, then Armin Embu can play that right tackle position in a pinch. But I imagine he would be a day one starter for them at that right guard position. Anthony Bradford just hasn't really worked out at that right guard position. So I think Embu, with his strength profile, I mean, he's really plays with tremendous strength in the run game. He is a little bit smaller, 6'3", 314. So as a true tackle, you have some question marks, but he does have good arm length. He's got really good feet as well. I do think he just needs to work on, if you're going to play him a tackle, he is a little bit lunge happy, and his hand placement needs some serious work. On to the Bucks, Nick Emanwari. Emanwari has closed the gap with Starks in the safety rankings, and I considered him 5 spots earlier for the Colts. Emanwari is going to be a red-hot prospect throughout this pre-draft process. He's already a pretty hot player, and for good reason. This South Carolina defense has been incredible. I'm not this high on Nick Emanwari. I do like him. I have him as a day 2 guy, somebody that is going to be very scheme-dependent on what you're going to run on your defense. It is a really interesting pick, though. I think I would personally lean towards either going pass rusher, depending on what you do in free agency. I mean, James Pierce Jr. and Mike Green are both on the board. I'd take one of those guys. Siobhan Revel. I'd go with any one of those 3 guys, as much as I do like Emanwari. I think he's a really good football player. Denver Broncos going Ashton Jeanty. I was wondering where Jeanty was going to go, and the Broncos need a running back, and that is something that they have had a clear issue with all season long, and they really haven't had many explosive plays in that running back room at all. So Jeanty's going to change that day 1. Probably week 1, he'll change that. So getting a guy like Ashton Jeanty, this would be a no-brainer selection if he's on the board. I understand you could use a tight end like a Colston Loveland here, or a Harold Fanning, who I think should very much be in tight end 1 conversation. He's certainly earned it. But I think that Jeanty would be the pick. I really do. I think he would help out so much if he was on the board at this point. And the Pittsburgh Steelers go Emeka Egbuka. You're going to see this mocked. I mean, I've mocked this over and over again. I think this is a great ad for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know Emeka Egbuka, people will pigeonhole him into the slot. I think he can play on the outside, play in the slot. He's got the size to do so. He's got enough athleticism off the line where I'm not really concerned. He's a tough-nosed blocker, too, for Arthur Smith and this offense. He's just going to be a really scrappy guy for them and a reliable weapon for whoever's quarterbacking here. He's a solid route runner. Just there's not many kinks to his game. You know what I mean? And that's what the Steelers need. They need a surefire number 2 behind George Pickens. And I don't know how much George Pickens is going to be here either. Maybe he ends up walking out for the season. Chargers, Colston Loveland, okay. This is another one of those where it's like, all right, I know, me and everybody else, we all mock Colston Loveland here to the Chargers for good reason. It's a Wolverine. You know that hard, but you know what? He's probably not going to draft any Michigan players this year just to kind of throw everybody off the trail. Probably will happen. It's a good pick, though. They need somebody that can catch the ball, especially on their offense. No minute drops. Then we go into oh my gosh, Mike Green to the Green Bay Packers. This would be fantastic. Oh my goodness, Gutekunst. If he actually will go for a player like this, I would love this move here. This is a really, really fun pick for them. They need somebody with some speed off that edge, right? Somebody that could get after the quarterback, be more consistent. Rashawn Gary didn't quite show up at times this season. I felt like I wasn't even really seeing number 56 out there. Lucas Van Ness has been a little hot and cold as well. And, I mean, I feel like Kingsley Enagbare has been one of their better edge rushers throughout this season. And they traded Preston Smith. They need to add another pass rusher in here, whether it's on day 1 or day 2 or free agency. Like, they're going to need to add somebody else, in my opinion. But Mike Green, oh my gosh. Wait, they're talking about Chad Pennington? Oh, okay, they're talking about former Marshall players that have gone on. That's a really good group of Marshall players. I'll tell you that right now. I love Chad Pennington. Oh my gosh. Probably one of my favorite Jets. Him and Curtis Martin. I love it. I love that pick. I love this pick. Benjamin Morrison at 24 to the Vikings. Skull. I'll hit the horn right there. Ooh. This would be a A-plus move for me. Benjamin Morrison keeps falling in mock drafts. Yeah, it's the shoulder surgery recently. I had the hip injury too. Those are going to be question marks for him. But in terms of him as a player, he's one of the best corners in this. I think he is the best cover corner in this draft. That's just my personal take. I would take him over Will Johnson if it weren't for the injury. So you go and get yourself a stud on the outside with Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, and also Shaquille Griffin, pardon me, but Byron Murphy, all free agents. They need a true number one corner in there for the long haul. Even if they bring back Byron Murphy or Shaquille Griffin, etc., like they're going to need some more help in that room. On to the Houston Texans. They're going Josh Simmons. Ohio State, the Buckeye went down with the left knee injury earlier on versus Oregon, unfortunately. But he was having a great season, and we might be talking about mocking this dude inside the top 5 if it weren't for that injury. No joke. I'm sure you get a lot of New England Patriots drafting this guy if it weren't for that injury with the way his season was going. But I feel like that the Houston Texans certainly could use some more offensive line help. Now, they did draft Blake Fisher. He struggled tremendously as a rookie. So he is a rookie. We ought to give him a little bit more time. It's a very interesting move. Would you try Josh Simmons at guard in this case scenario? Maybe. Maybe that's an option for them. He definitely has the play strength to do that and the run blocking mentality. I just would have some serious questions. Is like, would they trade Laramie Tunsil? What's their view on this? So would they give up on Blake Fisher? Titus Howard's been playing at guard for them. So a lot of really interesting scenarios for this Houston Texans team. I don't knock the player or anything like that or the pick. I'm just questioning how they're going to use Simmons. As I'm reading this here from Mel Kiper, this is what I would think. Is he slide into one of those guard spots possibly, maybe even right tackle, depending, Blake Fisher, have him in competition. And then for the long haul, Laramie Tunsil, they could look to get a little cheaper right there. They're going to have to pay C.J. Stroud, so they might say, well, we can't pay Laramie Tunsil and also C.J. Stroud, or we want to sign other guys, and then you draft somebody like Josh Simmons to develop there. So, look, I don't hate it. I really don't. I mean, Simmons is a really good player, and you're getting a first-round top 10 type of pick possibly there. On to the Rams. I love this move. Josh Connolly Jr., he is one of my favorite tackles in this class. He is my tackle 1 right now, and somebody that for the Los Angeles Rams, whenever they've had injuries, and they've had injuries at their tackle position. So whether you re-sign Aldrich Jackson, which I fully expect them to do that, that's fine. Like Rob Avenstein going into last year of his contract, he's, again, been banged up a little bit here and there, and he's a road grader, man. I like him. He's a really solid right tackle, but they need to start thinking about that long haul. Connolly would really help, for sure, protect Matthew Stafford or whoever's the quarterback for the long haul for this football team. Fantastic movement traits, and it maintains a clean pocket for the quarterback. That's all he's done this season, really, for that Oregon Ducks offensive line. As a Ducks fan, trust me, he's really good. I think he's really good. On to the Ravens. They go Siobhan Revel, so they go back-to-back first-round corners. It really depends. This would be BPA, so I'm okay with this. I really wouldn't mind at this point on the board at 27. I think it's a tremendous value. Revel's got crazy side. You could keep Marlon Humphrey. I always get those two names confused. Actually, a lot of times I do. But Marlon Humphrey, you could keep in as your slot player, and Nate Wiggins going to year number 2, and then you got Siobhan Revel filling in for Brandon Stevens on the outside. So those would be your 3 corners. That would be an elite secondary. So I certainly don't hate that. I think that they could look at defensive line too. The pass rush was a little inconsistent for me this season, so maybe they try to beef up the trenches a little bit more too. James Pierce Jr. is still on the board. I would consider it. I know they did draft this Isaac last year, and they got some youth in there, but Ajabo hasn't quite worked out just yet, at least. So a lot of options for the Ravens. Offensive guard, another play for them. Maybe even another receiver. Who knows, right? But I think that's probably more of a day 2, day 3 need. On the Detroit Lions. Oh my gosh, let's go! James Pierce Jr. falls. Oh my goodness, this would be a slam dunk pick for the Detroit Lions. You go get James Pierce Jr. with Aiden Hutchinson. Oh my gosh, I love this one. This is one of my favorite picks of the draft in terms of value. Him and Benjamin Morrison fall into the 20s. You're getting a true stud off the edge, Detroit Lions. Let's go. I love this. He can develop behind Zadarius Smith for a season, and then long haul be your starter there with Josh Pascal as a rotational player. Aiden Hutchinson, let's go. That's a celebration. That's a run to the table type of move for the Detroit Lions. Also, an important disclaimer. We used ESPN's Football Power Index to project the draft order from 29 to 32. I don't know, man. Let's go on to they really needed to use the ESPN Football Power Index for this one. But the Commanders, Nick scored. I don't know why I find that so funny, but sorry, my humor sometimes I just find the silliest things funny. I'm the person that finds every dad joke hilarious. But the Commanders go Nick Scorton, the pass rusher from Texas A&M, and he would certainly be a quality player. Like Nick Scorton's a very high floor prospect in my eyes, and just somebody that's going to come and be a no-nonsense football player. He's going to get to work. He's going to be able to fit in your defense right away and play meaningful snaps. Now, I see him as a guy who ideally maybe like a 3-4 that plays a little bit as a 5 tech on certain downs and then plays off the edge in certain downs. So somebody that's like a chess piece on a defensive line. If I'm Washington here, though, I'm leaning towards more of a Donovan Ezeraku type of player, somebody that can fill in for a Dante Fowler Jr., give you some more speed off the edge. I'm a huge fan of Ezeraku, I'll be honest. But Scourton, a good football player, and again, I can't knock this one. He has an extremely high floor. I just think he's going to be a very productive player, maybe like a Danico Autry type of player throughout his career, which is a very good football player. On to the Buffalo Bills, Maxwell Harrison, Kentucky corner. I've seen him mocked quite a bit by some of these lead draft analysts, such as Dane Brugler in the first round. And I see the traits with him. And this would be a good scheme fit, too, in a very zone-heavy defense. I think that's really going to be his fit at the next level. He's got tremendous movement skills. He plays, fast downhill. He's got a quick trigger to be able to locate the football to and make plays. He was just a little banged up this season, so there's that. Rasul Douglas is on an expiring deal, so he's going to be somebody that they have to fill in for. Safety, cornerback is definitely something they have to address, too, in that Buffalo secondary. It was a problem, especially adding another safety would make a lot of sense, too. On to the Chiefs, they go Walter Nolan. This is actually one that I did yesterday in my mock draft, was getting Walter Nolan. No, Chris Jones isn't going anywhere, but they got to get a running mate for him in Kansas City, so they go get Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. He's had a really good year. I mean, he's really developed from an athlete into an actual football player. That's kind of the analogy I've used with Walter Nolan this season. But it's true. Like, he is now a football player and an athlete. He's somebody that has been super disruptive, not just in the pass game, but as a run defender too. And going to be a really nice add for Spagnuolo and that defense as a pocket pusher. And then we go on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Kenneth Grant. Oh my gosh, how unbelievable. You like Kenneth Grant, Howie Roseman? Oh, you're trying to, you know what I mean? That's a great pick for Philadelphia. This is BPA. I know it's not their biggest need. You got Jordan Davis, but they use a rotation of guys, and Kenneth Grant's a good enough athlete where he can line up anywhere on your defensive line. Legit, he can play off the edge. I've seen him play off the edge. I'm not saying you do that, but he legit can play anywhere on that defensive line. He has that level of athletic profile. So you pair him up with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Just keep it strength to strength. Milton Williams is a free agent. Maybe he gets a contract elsewhere. I know he said he wants to come back. Who knows, right? He might get a big offer with the way he's played this season. So those are a lot of things on the table for them to consider this offseason. But if you had Kenneth Grant with Milton Williams, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis, you're keeping that defensive line unfair for teams to have to go against each and every week, where they can fill out an edge rusher in free agency if they had to or pick somebody up. That's just too good of a value that I'm not passing up on. Well, that's going to do it here for the all-great Mel Kiper. I always enjoy his mock drafts. I mean, there were some interesting takes, so I give him that, man. I don't agree with all the takes, but I really enjoyed it, and there's nothing like a Mel Kiper. You know it's draft season when Mel Kiper comes out with his mock drafts, so you got to give it to the GOAT, man. He certainly has been doing it, and for a very, very long time. He knows his stuff, as much as people are going to hate on him. And, of course, it's always fun with his interesting stuff. But, yeah, it's all in good fun out here. I really enjoyed this one. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions on Mel Kiper and his 1.0. Hope you have a cool day, down. My name's G Sling. I'm doing my thing. I'll talk to you later.